Welcome back to KTN Prime. In studio with me is pollster, IPSOS farm research analyst Tom Wolf. And before we went to break, we were telling me that it is that within margin of error that, pollsters could have gotten it wrong in as far as most of them having Clinton lead and win this election. But this is not the only time we've seen pollsters get it wrong in terms of the Britain, UK leaving the EU. It was the same thing, and usually we get the same narrative that it's because of this margin thing. So is it something that really works? Because we keep getting it wrong, don't we?
Yes, and even in the UK election, the last one, also they said it was going to be a hung parliament, and David Cameron came out with a Conservative majority, so they were wrong on that. Mm-hmm. But in addition to the underreporting of voting intention that you mentioned, it's also been documented, at least in those cases, that turnout, differential turnout, has also been a significant factor. And from what I've seen, the little that's been on the internet to verify this in this American election was also the case. It's very, very difficult to be sure when you're interviewing people, whether face-to-face, but especially as they do in these advanced countries over the phone, whether it's a landline or a mobile phone. When someone is asked, how sure are you that you will actually vote? And people say, of course, they want to look like a good citizen. But when you look, for example, at the African-American vote in this election, we already know it was quite a bit lower than it was for Obama 4 years ago. And the pollsters find it very difficult. I can tell you, we received guidelines from the IPSOS polling center in Washington, D.C. a few years ago, recommending all of us, when we release our poll results before an election, to give 3 or 4 different scenarios based on differential turnout, and that's very difficult to predict.
Tom, and even here in Kenya, pollsters have been criticized for getting it wrong in whether it's an election or an issue or the other. So what does that say for your career going forward? Because really, it's not looking credible, because every time then there's a poll coming up, we'll be like, yeah, whatever they're saying, believe the exact opposite.
Well, if I've just seen that Hillary Clinton, in fact, got more votes, popular votes, than Donald Trump did. If that figure hasn't changed. But those were issues
pollsters could have put into consideration going by the electoral system in the U.S.
Well, they did, in the sense of saying that this 3% margin on average that we're giving to Clinton is based on the national popular vote. In order to predict an outcome, we actually have to look at the polls in each of the 50 states and a couple of territories. And if you went to those websites of 270towin.com or 538.com or even Real Clear Politics and so on, often you could find it very easily that the quality and number of these polls varied. Some states had almost no polling. So in sort of extrapolating from these individual state polls to predict an outcome was very problematic. And that's why in their final percentage of 538, they said day before yesterday that Clinton's chances of winning were 64%.
Yeah.
So Trump had, at least from the pollsters, a 1/3 chance of winning. And they said, and this will depend upon turnout and these other factors that you mentioned.
All right.
So I don't think it's a reason for me to give up my profession and go into cattle herding or something like that.
All right. Thank you very much, Tom Wolf, who's a research analyst at IPSOS. We appreciate you making time to be with us on KTN Prime. Another